Good evening from St. Peter's in Hove. It's Saturday. Did you see the funeral? I mean, the funeral of Prince Philip from Windsor today. I don't know what people are going to talk about a great deal in the next few days because I imagine it'll be subject to a great deal of analysis and raking over the coals and so on. People talk about the music and how wonderful it was. Considering there was just a choir of four, the music was stupendous. And they did a lot of singing as well. I think what people are going to focus on a great deal is the idea of the prince's carriage being taken out while his coffin was carried past, and also the way he was taken down to the chapel in a Land Rover which had been adapted for the purpose, a Land Rover hearse, which he himself had designed. Which is not everybody gets to design their own hearse, I think you'll agree. Not everybody even occurs to them to design their own hearse, let alone get to do it. But Prince Philip, the extraordinary man that he was, did exactly that. I think people will say, that was so nice. That was the personal touch, something that was unique to the prince, that he loved Land Rovers and he had a flair for designing things and tinkering with cars and so on. So that will, I think, endure that image of the Land Rover. Now, where does this leave us? Well, it says in the Green Book, which I'll talk about in coming nights. The Green Book is the rite of funerals, essentially, that we Catholics use. It says in the Green Book that the funeral service should reflect the life of the person who has died. And therefore, something like your own personalised hearse is perfectly acceptable. In fact, it's praiseworthy. Sometimes people arrive for their funerals on motorcycle and sidecar hearses. I don't know if you've ever seen those. You can hire them. Next week, I'm doing a funeral where it's going to be a horse-drawn hearse. So for some people, this is sort of important. One of the things, of course, you can't really adapt, though, is the liturgy itself. You can't say, I want to write my own Eucharistic prayer. Well, I'm sorry, you can't do that. There are 4 Eucharistic prayers. Actually, there are a few more, but there are only 4 that are in common use. And we stick to them. The liturgy is written by the church. And similarly, the scriptures are written by the canon of the scriptures has been chosen by the church. We can't change that. You can't say, I'd just like to adapt this bit of the Gospel of St. Matthew because I'd like to make it more fitting for our grandfather or whatever. You can't do that. You have to take the scriptures as they come to us. But there are other things you can change. There are things that you can do, such as in the choice of music, in the choice of flowers, in the choice of who brings up the offertory gifts, things like that. You can adapt. Also, you've got in the choice of what people wear. It used to be de rigueur, and I noticed that the royal family stuck to this quite rigidly, that once upon a time, for a funeral, you wore formal dress and black. Nowadays, nobody wears formal dress, sponge bag trousers and swallowtail coats for a funeral, or hardly anybody does. It's usual, though, to wear some sort of suit and tie, usually a black tie. And it's usual often for people to wear sober clothing, although the idea of black, universal black, has really gone out. But you could easily ask, and I've seen this done, where there's a funeral where in memory of the deceased or to mark the special character of the deceased, you are all asked to come dressed in some sort of colour scheme. I remember once going to a terribly affecting funeral once of a little girl whose favourite colour was pink, and so people were asked to wear something pink. And that was just, it's what the parents wanted. It was probably a great comfort to them. And it was our way of showing that we cared. So everybody came wearing something pink. And you can do that. You can do that. Again, there's always this big thing that we Catholics have, of course. What colour should the priest wear? Obviously, he's going to wear a chasuble to say Mass, unless, of course, it's a funeral service. We'll talk about that in a moment, maybe in the future time. But he's going to wear a chasuble. If it's somebody who has died below the age of confession, i.e. 7 years or younger, the priest should always wear white. Otherwise, he should wear either purple or black. Those are the usual things. Some priests like to wear white for all funerals, the birthday into heaven. Incidentally, the pall, which isn't often placed over the coffin, but can be, palls have rather gone out, should be white because it's supposed to represent the baptismal robe. And therefore, I suppose you could say birthday into heaven, and you also have the Paschal candle there. Therefore, you might have a white chasuble as well. though I personally would go for a black chasuble or a purple chasuble, depending whether it's Lent and Advent and so on. But the funeral has got to be personal. Yes, we understand that. But at the same time, it's got to be universal. It's got to be according to what the church does. And that's incredibly important, that when we celebrate a funeral, we're not doing something that's just for us. We're doing something universal. We're laying somebody to rest according to the rites and ceremonies of the church. And it says, it is now our duty to bury the body of our brother or sister in the traditional manner of God's faithful people. And I like that, the traditional manner of God's faithful people. In other words, great comfort to us when we're going to a funeral, we're doing what our ancestors did, going all the way back to the catacombs. Okay, all the best for now. See you again soon, I hope. Bye.